Okay. So, Lovecraft Country. I know I'm 2 episodes behind now. However, after I get this shot, I'm going to go watch the next one and shoot a review on that. And then watch the next one and shoot a review on that. And start reviewing these episode by episode as they come out. It's been a while since I've done that. I think the last thing I did episode by episode reviews of was the last season of Doctor Who, which wrapped up months and months and months ago. But I'm going to want to keep talking about this one because it's either going to be amazing or it's going to go off the rails in a really spectacular way, and I want to see it in either case. So, Lovecraft Country, it is on HBO. The first episode was, I think still is, free to view on YouTube, the entire episode. And it is part of why I finally caved and got HBO Max. We'll see how long I stick with that, but that's just also how I'm going to end up watching the second season of Harley Quinn, and maybe I'll get around to Doom Patrol and a bunch of other stuff. But that, no promises on time frames for any of that. Regardless, this was part of what got me wanting to do it. And this is a really smart approach for how to do Lovecraft, because it has some of the traditional Lovecraftian elements that you would expect. The notions of cultish behavior, these creatures that we don't know what they are and are barely kind of comprehensible, strange and bizarre happenings, weird towns, unknown family lineages. These are all pretty straightforward Lovecraft, but at the same time, it is directly confronting the thing that makes Lovecraft a bit of a loaded thing to try and do at all, which is there's a lot of very deep racism, not only in Lovecraft himself as a person when he was alive, but it runs through his work. It's part of the key undercurrent that underpins a whole lot of what he's doing, because he's terrified of things he doesn't understand. And you read his descriptions and depictions of anyone who isn't white, and those can often come across as more horrific than the monsters. So, having this be a story focusing on black people in the era of Jim Crow, that is a way to deal with it head on, but then also to twist that fear of the unknown, fear of great and powerful forces beyond your understanding that will crush you, and not only confront the racism of the man who created the Lovecraftian horror genre, but also take those concepts and turn them in aid of a racial story. Because what is the scariest thing in this first episode? It's not the creatures. It's not the monsters. The most tense and just harrowing thing that I've seen on any screen in a while was watching these 3 black people driving a car with a sheriff behind them in a Sundown county, which, if you don't know your history, sundown towns or sundown counties were areas in which if black people were seen about after dark, they could and would be arrested, beaten, lynched, simply for being out. And they are desperately trying to cross the county line before the sun goes down. And the sheriff is right behind them, and they can't speed, because if they speed, he will pull them over. It is so tense as this representative of this system that is huge and ominous and just luring over them for their entire lives. Even if they don't know that it's there, it's still oppressing them. That is Lovecraftian horror recontextualized in a way that is really cool to see. It is not at all surprising to me to find out that Jordan Peele is one of the minds behind this show, because This is very similar to what he managed to do with Get Out and Us, is to take a style of horror and recontextualize it so that it is used to put a focus on the kinds of people that horror movies aren't usually about. In the case of Get Out and Lovecraft Country, it is explicitly a racial thing. With Us, race was a big part of it, but it's much more about class than it is about race in that case. I don't think I ever did a review of Us. You should watch Us. It was... I think it made my list of best movies. That was as close as I came to a review. Anyway, this is really good and really tense. And honestly, the most directly Lovecraftian thing I felt was when they're in this, the three black people, they go into this diner. And one of them goes to the back to use the bathroom. And she hears somebody on the phone calling other people to the diner. And it brought to mind the cults, the whispers, the seeing of these communications going on behind the scenes. Again, very Lovecraftian. There are a couple of things that make me a little bit nervous. So, first of all, if I can be completely honest, I hate the opening. The opening, which is a dream sequence with Cthulhu. Cthulhu better not show up in this. Can I just say that flatly? Cthulhu is the sellout of the Lovecraft mythos at this point. If they want to bring in a specific Lovecraft monster, aside from the Shoggoth, which I'll get to, I would like them to tackle anyone other than Cthulhu. I have my own preferences, but just not him. Just not Cthulhu. Please. I mean, I would think, given that a lot of this seems to be based in the forest, they would go with Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Wood with 1,000 Young, which would also lend itself well to the fact that that name, if you break it down, as well as the title, if you break it down, has a lot of racial connotations to it. So that's what I'd prefer to see show up. But, who knows? We'll see. But I didn't like the dream sequence opening. I thought it was cheap. It was over the top in a way that was supremely uninteresting to me. The family and the personal drama is done very well. The music does a lot to set the tone in this. That does a lot of good work. The one other thing, the opening was the only thing I flat out didn't like. The other thing that I'm a little bit, I think they showed too much of the monsters, especially for a first episode. Now, granted, part of that may have been they might have known going in that they were going to be putting this first episode up for free, so maybe there was an incentive there to put some of this stuff more front and center, but I don't like how good a look we get at the Shoggoths, and I don't like how long they're around. I also don't like how many people they kill. Explicitly that we see. I feel like I would have preferred something like they start attacking and the three main characters get away and we hear gunshots and a bunch of other stuff, but we're not sure what happened, as opposed to actually just watching a massacre. And I really wish we hadn't gotten as good a look. I don't remember Shoggoths having a bite and the bite victim becomes a Shoggoth. I don't remember that being a thing. Although, to be fair, I'm not actually that deep into Lovecraft. I've read some of his stuff, and I'm familiar with some of the mythos, but I'm not that deep into it, so that may honestly have been the case. I just don't recall it. But I think we just got too many long, lingering looks at them. And seeing them, sort of surrounding the cabin. I know it's supposed to be intimidating, but I'm like, I shouldn't have this strong a sense of scale, of how big they are, of how many they are. I shouldn't know these things. I now know too much about them. And that bugs me a little bit, but I'll see if that's an indicator of them oversharing too much too soon. and too loudly about the creatures, or if it was just part of what they knew was going to be a first episode that, to sucker everyone in and get them hooked. And it did get me hooked, not that particular element, but I'm hooked on the show, and I definitely want to see what comes next. So, Lovecraft Country, first episode. Actually, as soon as I stop watching this, I'm going to turn on episode 2. So, thanks so much for watching. I have a PayPal tip jar, link in the description. I also have a Patreon, the support of which is actually what is covering my bills and allowing me to eat at present. So if you wish to help me out that way, I would greatly appreciate it. If not, liking, sharing, subscribing, all of which help. Have you seen Lovecraft Country? What are your thoughts about the first episode? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. But you also don't have to do any of the things I just described, because we take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break.